Looney, my hero. He can get out of any spot. What a guy. Nothing can hold him.
Hello and welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Porky Pig's Feet, released in 1943. It's the 408th in the series and it's directed by Frank Tashlin. You can find this short on the Looney Tunes Gold Collection Volume 3 DVD set, on the Platinum Collection Volume 3 Blu-ray and DVD set, and on the Porky Pig 101 DVD set. It's also in the public domain, so after this massive review, you guys get to see the short if you haven't seen it, or definitely watch again, because this is a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure many of you would agree. Porky and Daffy have been staying at the Broken Arms Hotel. The manager presents Porky with the bill. Porky insists that Daffy's going to get the money so they can pay, and then there's all sorts of shenanigans. First up, you're going to see the highlights of the audio commentary I did with Austin Kelly, the self-professed Tashlin holic. The full commentary is still up on the channel, but I wanted to put it here, and I've just edited out a few bits for clarity and just make it fit more into this review style. So grab some popcorn and enjoy.
This is the greatest day of my life. No, I'm just kidding. This is a big monument. Tashlin's back, my favorite Warner cartoon director, one of my favorite film directors. You bet I'm going to be on all the Tashlin commentaries from this point on. Get hyped, because this is an amazing cartoon, and so are the ones to follow.
And just a few quick little tidbits before we get right into it. It's of course, the first Tashlin short since 1938. Uses the first Powerhouse song, because I know it was a bit of music was used in Greetings Bait, but its first proper usage of Powerhouse. It's the last black and white Porky, and it's the first and only black and white. Well, I won't spoil it. I won't spoil it just yet.
Oh yeah!
Wow! Look at these backgrounds, animation.
It's amazing. Everything works with this thing. Look at that layout. That's gorgeous. And this is a very brief, interesting bit of animation. This shot too by Disney guy Ray Patton, who was a holdover from the McCabe unit, kind of disappears for a little while after this cartoon and a few early Tashlins, and then only appears on one McKimson, Daffy Doodles, and then leaves Warner Cartoon Studio forever. Just a few interesting things you might want to know. This cartoon was scripted 8 months before its release. Scripted November of 42, released July of 43. And the working title was False Rumors, which probably didn't work out because they wanted Porky's name in the title to open audiences, but that's just a theory. Not the first Tashlin-related Warner cartoon. He was waiting for McCabe to leave to be drafted, so Schlesinger just kept him busy by working on the story for Corny Concerto, and he did some amazing, gorgeous, full-color background layouts for that cartoon, which sadly haven't surfaced, but I'm sure they look amazing. So yeah, clearly I do have a lot to say about this thing.
Oh, no, I clearly know nothing at all. But I liked before when you had the animation of Daffy Duck when his beak is right up against this hotel manager's face, about how if you're gonna freeze frame something, definitely do it. You've got some weird drawings in there. Just, we say that about Clampett stuff. I think Tashlin stuff has some great freeze framing stuff. It's incredible.
Oh, of course he does, because he's got Art Davis here. Davis, who is one of the funniest animators of all time. Davis was kind of fired by Tashlin at the Screen Gem studio, where Tashlin was before he came back to Warner's. And then they end up in the same unit together here, Davis and Tashlin, which is kind of weird, and they probably didn't work well together, but clearly Davis does some amazing animation in this cartoon, which I will certainly point out when we get to it.
And this also shows just how professional Tashlin is. I mean, sure, him and Davis may not have gotten along, but they got the job done. But not only that, Tashlin never liked working on Porky, and what's his first cartoon he does when he comes back? Porky. It's like, okay, he just does it, and that's that. And this marks an interesting occasion for me, personally, because this kind of means that I've seen every cartoon on the Porky Pig 101 DVD set. Hooray for me. Hooray for me, because
did you notice
watched a lot of them.
That background was honestly very much so more daring than a black and white Porky Pig cartoon should be. It starts out from the side, and then it slowly pans down, and you see 3/4 of the stairwell, and then you slow down and pan down, and you see it straight from above. It's so weird, but it's amazing. It just goes to show that Tashlin really went the extra mile in a lot of these cartoons and did crazy, amazing stuff like that he really didn't have to do. But God, it makes the cartoon so much better and enjoyable.
Who's the background artist here for this one?
Dave Hilberman, who did some great stuff on the McCabe cartoons.
Yeah, I thought it was him. I just didn't want to guess.
Yeah,
didn't want to guess.
Sure. Look at this. This is definitely freeze frame worthy. You have to study this if you're an animator. Daffy just whacking this guy over with a mallet. I told you I was going to point out Art Davis's animation, and here it is. It's amazing. It works so well with the stylized Tashlin stuff. It's honestly really funny stuff. I wish I could draw like that.
And what interests me as well is, okay, so we've seen all the Tashlin, the original Tashlin stuff, and a lot of it's very rounded. And as what's been pointed out a lot, his stuff in the 40s seemed to get a lot more angular, and it's just an interesting how he went from one style to another. Well, here's a Tashlin joke, of course. I mean, you gotta have.
Oh God, if you look at his live action films, he always shows off like some lady's legs. It's so weird. I don't know why, but it's he's definitely
he's got his Tashlinism. It's a good old Tashlinism, but I'd say it's a bit of harmless fun. Like, he has to stop and look at it again, of course. Just absolutely ridiculous. But I love this short. I even showed this to my kids and that. And if you want proof, kids, they don't care that it's black and white. I showed this to them. They didn't ask, why is it black and white? Why is it square? They were just laughing. They thought this was one of the funniest things they've ever seen. and even the cameo at the end, they were laughing a lot, which I may as well say now, because most people would have watched this one a lot because it is in the public domain. But this is the first and only black and white Bugs Bunny appearance, and I believe Tashlin did only 2 after this.
3 if you count it. He does Unruly Hair Remover, and this one, just because he lost his seniority, you kind of had to build your way up from the Porky and Daffys, and then you finally do Bugs, and then he leaves the studio, which is obviously what happened there, and what happened with Artie Davis later on. He only does 1 Bugs, and it's like one of the last ones he does. Because it's a shame, because Unruly Hair is a classic, so is Hair Remover, and so is Bowery Bugs, which is that Art Davis cartoon I was talking about. It's such a shame that they didn't get to work with the character more often, because they're really great.
Yeah. But
there was an interesting color thing. The Looney Tunes font was brighter than usual. I think they might have used the color version of that cell that they probably repainted and redid for the colored Looney Tunes that they started to make. I don't know, it's just a theory, but that looked a little weird.
And, we're actually getting close to the end of another era with Looney Tunes, and because Tashlin, I believe, directs also the last black and white Looney Tunes cartoon ever.
Puss in Booty, that's a classic too. I'm excited for that one.
Pretty much. Okay, so Tashlin, he leaves Warner's or is fired, and he then does all these other jobs in between, and then eventually winds his way back to Warner Brothers. And a lot of people might be wondering, and this was answered in the previous video, so this is more for the newbies, why would Leon want to hire Tashlin again when they had issues prior?
Well, I think Tashlin actually said this himself. Leon only cared about money, and if he could get a replacement who he knew made good and funny cartoons, he would absolutely do that. All personal issues and preferences aside, he would absolutely take up Tashlin again and again, as he did, just for the money that he had in it. But,
I think it was just a whole professionalism thing. It's like, why hold grudges? Just get the job done. At least that's what I think.
Exactly.
So he's let go from Warner Brothers in 1938, so he goes to Disney, I believe?
I'm not sure of the exact chronology there, but at some points, when he was not at the Warner Studio, in between 38-ish and 42, he goes to Disney at some point, leaves, and then goes to Screen Gems, where he's just automatically put as the head of the studio. He didn't really do much special work. He did some stuff on Mickey and the Beanstalk, the Peter and the Wolf stuff at Disney. Screen Gems, he created the Fox and Crow, and he did their first cartoon in the early 40s, which is honestly one of the only Screen Gems cartoons I would tell people to watch. Very much so reminiscent of his later Warner stuff, like Porky Pig's Feet. It's even got like a similar shot, where the manager's falling down the stairs, and you see like his shadow or his in the reflection of Daffy's eye. You see that same kind of shot in that first Fox and Crow. But yeah, he does some interesting stuff, and then he comes back in 42 when McCabe leaves. Like I said, he did some work as storyman on Corny Concerto, which of course is another classic cartoon, not entirely Tashlin, but it's a Clampett one. It's a very funny cartoon as well. And then he takes over the unit, and yeah, he does Porky Pig's Feet, all kinds of great goodies that we're going to dive into soon that I'm very excited for.
But it doesn't really stay long, does he? It's just...
No, I don't. Again, I don't know the exact dates, but it's somewhere around late summer, early fall 42 to late summer, early fall of 44. At which point, Bob McKimson takes over his unit, he was given the chance to direct a few times before, and he was kind of eager to take over that unit. Although arguably he was pretty weak as a director overall later on, especially. But I know Tashlin does some great stuff. Gotta love Porky Pig's Feet. I Got Plenty of Mutton. Puss in Booty, like we said. His Daffy's, Plain Daffy's a riot. The few Bugs cartoons he's about to do, they're all amazing. I think they're all great, definitely worth watch. And, we are going to watch those soon, coming up.
Oh, yeah. That entire commentary / I guess overflow, if you want to call it, it's still up on the channel. I'm not sure how I'll approach the other Tashlins that are not in the public domain, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So, I've already mentioned that this is the first Tashlin short of the 40s over at Warner Brothers, but I since found out when I was doing the notes for Tokyo Jokyo, according to Michael Barrier, based on some documentation he found, he actually had helped Norm McCabe finish off Tokyo Jokyo. Of course, McCabe was the one directed. I would imagine McCabe probably had most of it finished, or maybe they just wanted to honor McCabe because he was off fighting the fight at the time. But also didn't realize at the time, and this should have been a pretty obvious thing, but this is the first short directed by Tashlin that has Daffy Duck in it. The ones he did in the 30s mostly feature either Porky or one-off characters in the Merry Melodies series that he did. So there's that. But at the time, Daffy Duck only just became a breakout character anyway, so it kind of makes sense that by the time he became this massive character, Tashlin already left the studio, so it's not really surprising, to be honest. So a few things I wanted to go through. So I enjoy seeing that disclaimer in the very beginning. And that disclaimer is based off a real disclaimer that they still use in movies today, but that came from one movie in the late 20s where they based it off certain real-life people. They sued, they won, and of course this disclaimer is now added so that the movie companies can protect themselves. I do wonder if the Broken Arms Hotel is referencing a real hotel. I tried looking it up, but I can't seem to find anything, so that's where you guys come in. I really want to know, is this based off of a real hotel? I always love freeze framing things like newspapers, and in this case, a bill. One of the few times I actually like looking at a bill, to be honest, but you gotta look at it. It includes air, sunshine, and the way our capitalist society is going. I'm guessing they'll probably soon start charging for air and sunshine for places to live, but anyway, I won't go further than that. And I do like that Louis the 16th bed without Louis. There really is the Louis the 16th furniture style, so I didn't want to go too far into the rabbit hole, but I couldn't resist. So there's the furniture style for Louis the 15th and Louis the 16th, and they both are apparently different. So I won't turn this whole video in regards to furniture styles, but it really does exist. I've always loved the cut from Porky saying cashing a check to Daffy just gambling away the money. And this is really one of the first few times where we see Porky as the straight man to Daffy's more wacky nature, and this is something that McKimson would notably do quite a bit, and Chuck Jones too, of course. Looks like Tashlin more or less set the template for what McKimson would end up doing later on, which is pretty interesting. People always point out the Clampett shorts have insane things, and rightly so, but take a look at some of these Tashlin shorts, and he did some pretty weird and wild stuff too. And then Daffy just goes inside the hotel manager's whole face, and he always says, "Hey, fatso," he always calls him that, which is hilarious. And Daffy mentions the Dick Tracy villain, Pruneface, and there really was a villain in the Dick Tracy comic book strip called Pruneface. One shot I never really noticed before, it's just a little touch that Tashlin didn't really need to do, but I'm glad he did. But if you look closely at the monocle, Daffy ends up poking his tongue out when the manager starts speaking again. I never saw that. I seem to be discovering always new things when watching this particular short. I also love how Tashlin chose to be cinematic with the glove slap. So Daffy's standing there all defiant. We cut away and we hear the slap, and then we see the aftermath. And it's interesting they chose to do it for this, and yet there are so many other gags which are way more violent than this that Tashlin actually does show. We see a bit where Daffy goes, "You had your coffee rations." It's a World War II reference, as coffee was rationed during World War II, though only briefly from the end of 42 to 43, so this joke was made during a very brief time when coffee was considered to be rationed. And that's why when you look at Coal Black, there's also a reference to coffee being rationed there too. But then Daffy returns the slap, so he returns the favor, but here we actually see the impact, and it's even bigger than what the hotel manager did. So an interesting choice there. And his delivery, "My card, you cad," and he just happens to have flypaper. I love that delivery there. And then we see some amazing cinematic stuff with the whole elevator sequence. My goodness, I just love the camera work. I mean, we don't actually have a camera per se, like we would in the live action, but the way Tashlin directs things with shorts like this, you'd think otherwise. And we get a payoff to the flypaper gag, because you're wondering, well, we still got the flypaper on, and sure enough, Daffy just takes it off and goes, "My card, please." But then we see this extreme gag of the guy just falling down and screaming for ages, which is probably a highlight for most people, and maybe what they remember most about this short. I know at least that's for me anyway. It's so funny that takes such a long time, but then as soon as Porky and Daffy more or less insult the manager, he's just up instantly. He just can't stand to be insulted. Love the delivery on that. So Daffy and Porky say, "Alright, we gotta pay," and the hotel manager ends up talking really, really fast, and that's a reference to a Lucky Strike radio ad where they actually got a fast-talking auctioneer who delivered the line in this way, like talking really, really fast, and then at the end it's like saying, "Sold to an American." So that's where that comes from, and if you look at a lot of the shorts in the early 40s, like from Tex Avery and Bob Clampett, you'll definitely know that reference. And I like the randomness of the door gag. It seems like a leftover Tex Avery gag, but hey, it's still pretty funny, especially that whole monotonous, isn't it? That's definitely from the Tex Avery wheelhouse. You know, one thing I've always wondered is why on earth was there a random person in the sewer wanting to do a hot foot on Porky? At the studio at the time, there were plenty of pranks involving doing hot foots there, and that's what they reference in the Christmas videos that have since become available. But this person goes all out, and he puts so many different matches on Porky's feed. Wow. Who is this person? We will never know. Looking at the background where it looks like the months are out of whack on the wall, where Porky's, counting down the days that they're stuck at this hotel, which wouldn't make any sense. I would imagine they would have been kicked on the streets. Like, why would they still be at the hotel if the owner could be making money off of actual people staying there? But anyway, whatever. It's still pretty funny to see, so that's not a big deal or anything. But if you look at the background, the months are out of whack, and we even get a reference to Petunia. And Tashlin was the one who had created the character and used in his first directing stint at Warner's, although we don't see her ever in the 40s. In fact, the last appearance was in the late 30s, Bob Clampett short. So then Daffy decides, you know what, we're going to get Bugs Bunny to help us, and this just shows how quickly Bugs Bunny became so popular. Because remember, Wild Hair came out in 1940. This would have been created in 1942, obviously released in 43. So the fact that in just a few short years, Bugs Bunny was a massive success and a big breakout character, and yeah, Porky and Daffy just in glee over this massive star, and we get that punchline at the end where Bugs doesn't really sound like himself, but he does say the quote, "Don't work, do they?" And that's a quote from Jerry Colonna, who was a radio comedian at the time. And now my good friend Manny Cruz, the Toonie Tenor, he loves this short. It's one of his favorites of all time, and again, I can't blame him. This really is a masterpiece, as I mentioned yet again. but he's going to also discuss the music of this short. So, take it away, Manny.
Hi everyone, this is Manny Cruz, the Toonie Tenor, as well as the birthday boy. I'm recording this on my birthday, March 10th, 2024, and I'm always happy to record for Anthony, but I was like, you know what? Let me give him, or I should say, give myself the best birthday gift in the world, doing work for Anthony. No, but I mean, I do these because I love these cartoons, and yeah, Anthony's all right. He's a pretty decent guy. But anyway, I'm coming on for a special edition of It's Time for Manny's Music Time, with music trivia and birthday cake for me today. Bum! I had some ice cream cake before. It's pretty delicious. For the 1943 Looney Tune cartoon Porky Pig's Feet, directed by my fellow Jersey boy, Mr. Frank Tashlin. I asked Anthony to come on for this cartoon because, as he stated earlier in this particular commentary, this is one of my favorite cartoons of all time. It's in my top 10. I never get tired of watching this cartoon. It is beyond hilarious. It is one of Tashlin's best, if not his best cartoon that he ever made. And what a strong start for him after his hiatus from Warner Brothers. He left the studio in 1938. The second time he left the studio, he left it earlier in the 30s when he was working as an animator, and then he became a director in 1936, and then he left in 38. He drifted around a little bit. He spent some time with Disney. He was running the production for the Columbia output of cartoons, working on stuff like The Fox and The Crow, and then eventually came back to Warner's in 1942 until 44, and he bangs out this amazing cartoon, as well as the other cartoons in his second half of his tenure. It really is a shame that he didn't direct more cartoons, but obviously he had a successful career in live-action comedy, and I really need to sit down and watch his live-action output. I've heard some things, I've seen some clips of it, and from what I've heard, some people have said that his live-action stuff feels like live-action cartoons in the sight gags and things of that nature. So anyway, let's talk about this particular cartoon, because again, it is one of my personal favorites, and I love watching, and I love talking about this one. Let's talk about the cues for this one. So obviously it starts off with The Merry-Go-Round Broke Down, the Looney Tunes theme song. And the opening title starts with the traditional children's song, Do You Know, wait for it, The Muffin Man. So do you know the Muffin Man who lives on Drury Lane? And you hear that during the opening titles, and you hear it a little bit during the disclaimer that Anthony was talking about, you know, any similarities to real hotels is purely coincidental, all that stuff. So here's a little info about the Muffin Man, because according to the cue sheet, it said E. Fitzgerald, and I'm thinking, wait, is this Ella Fitzgerald? She didn't compose a song. Obviously, she performed it, a legendary jazz singer in her own right. But I get this information from the Museum of London website, and I quote, "What's this all about?" Well, let me see if I can do my best British accent. What's this all about? Oh, that was terrible. Cut that. So what's this all about? And I quote, "This rhyme was written down in 1820, and you guessed it, it's about a muffin man working on Drury Lane in London's West End." And West End is a huge place for musical theater. Think of it like the British version of New York City's Broadway. Poor Victorians would spend long hours at work, usually working 12 hours a day with only Sundays off. Guess things haven't changed in the past 200 years. That didn't leave much time for cooking. Few had kitchens and instead had to cook their own food on an open fireplace, which was hot and smoky work. Many people chose to buy their food from the wide variety of street sellers instead. The Muffin Man was just one of these, selling muffets and crumpets for low prices. Healthy meals were expensive, and I once again digress in saying things still haven't changed in the past 200 years. Back to the article. Healthy meals were expensive, and so many families relied on bulky foods like bread and muffins to fill them up. Other street sellers sold fried fish, hot eels, pea soup, baked potatoes, and meat pies. Street sellers can still be found all over London and many other cities today, unquote. I've sadly never been to London. One day I'd like to go there, but street vendors, I mean, I'm a 25-minute train away from Manhattan, so I know all about all the street vendors that are in the city. So I knew the song was a kid's song, children's song from a long time ago, but I didn't realize how old it was. You know, I remember singing as a little kid, you know, here and there. So that's the Muffin Man. And when the camera zooms up, it does a pan up to the top of the Broken Arms Hotel. It bursts into the Gold Digger song, also known as Where in the Money, written by Harry Warren and Al Dubin, who I've spoken at length about in other Manny's Music Times. For the earlier Merry Melodies, please go check those out. And when Porky is reading the bill at the Broken Arms Hotel that he's given, he is quoted with a price of $152.50. And because anytime I see something in a Warner Brothers cartoon dealing with money, I have to go to my trusty old inflation calculator. $152 for a hotel room, that's like what? At a decent hotel, that's like a 2-night stay now in 2024. But let's see, $152.50 in 2024 would be, that's a steep price. That's $2,718 in 2024 money. Yeah, I could see why Porky and Daffy were trying to avoid the bill. And speaking of the bill itself, I mean, just this sight gag is just absolutely hilarious. You know, the Louis 16 bed without Louis, air for breathing, sunshine for 2 days, and an additional goodwill because they were really milking these tips over here. The room itself is $65. And then, of course, the bath with hot and dirty running water. I paused that when I was watching the cartoon and I was cracking up. So let's see. The room itself, $65. That's still over $1,000. $1,158.79. Yeah, this place is a ripoff. So after you hear the Gold Digger song, which premiered in a Warner Brothers film in the 30s, it goes into the Latin Quarter, dun, 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 which was also another composition by Harry Warren and Al Dubin, another song that debuted in a Warner Brothers film, Gold Diggers in Paris.
You will, of course, pay the bill now before you leave, no?
So yeah, the Latin Quarter, I guess, playing up the fact that, you know, the Palooka manager, one of the greatest villains in Warner Brothers history, and Mel Blanc putting on like a, I guess you could say like a Hispanic Latin accent when he speaks. I mean, I am Latino myself, so I could hear a little bit of it. Yeah, that's his introduction, the Latin Quarter. And like I said, two of the best villains I've ever seen in Warner Brothers cartoons are from Tashlin cartoons. I mean, you got, as I've said a million times, Lawyer Goodwill from The Case of the Stuttering Pig and the Palooka manager of the Broken Arms Hotel from this one. So if they ever do another revival, come on, Warner Brothers, you got a great villain right here, especially now in today's society. I mean, you could still do the concept of a hotel manager, but maybe like an Airbnb guy or whatever. And, of course, bringing on Porky and Daffy. As I said, Porky and Daffy, they're my favorite Looney Tune duo. I love their cartoons. Porky's my favorite, so it's always good to see the two of them do their shenanigans. So when Porky's talking to the Palooka manager, he's saying he's a cashing the check. And I always like the way the animation looks when Porky is talking to the manager in the scene. I don't know who the animator is. I'm assuming it's Cal Dalton, based on what I see, and I know the credited animator for this one is Phil Monroe, but I don't want to, I'm terrible at identifying animators. Austin, if you hear this, please let me know. So when it cuts to the scene, or when it dissolves into the scene where you see Daffy betting away the check, you hear the song Get At Mule by Leonard Ware. And I never knew until I was doing the research for this cartoon that specific scene of them playing craps, it was an original song. I assumed that it was a stalling cue. And yeah, you hear the hotel employee with the Rochester imitation by Mel Blanc. One of the elements of the cartoon that hasn't aged well, but honestly, for most people, if they hear that, they wouldn't make that association unless they know the history of Eddie Rochester Anderson and all that. But yeah, Daffy's shooting craps to the employee. You lose. You're a dead duck.
Come on, Seven. Be good to Daffy. Don't fail me now.
Uh-oh. Snake Eyes. Too bad. You is a dead duck. Duck.
Now, the song itself, Get At Mule, was composed, like I said, by Leonard Ware. So who is Leonard Ware? Brief bio of him. He was born December 28th, 1909 in Richmond, Virginia, and he died March 30th, 1974. He was an American jazz guitarist that he went to the Tuskegee Institute to study, which was a very famous university primarily for African-American students. I know one of my personal favorite musicians, Lionel Richie, attended the Tuskegee Institute as well in Tuskegee, Alabama. Leonard Ware, he went on to record with Benny Goodman. One of his compositions was actually recorded by Glenn Miller, and eventually Leonard Ware would have his own trio, and he would serve as the leader of the trio, performing all over the country, recording and performing. And I was trying to find more information about him because I found a cover of the sheet music of it, and sadly, at this time period, there weren't a lot of composers that were using these cartoons that were black. And whenever I see a person of color or whenever I see a woman composer pop up, it's always a nice change of pace for things. When I was actually trying to look up a little more information or photo of Leonard Ware, I found a recording of him performing on the radio. It was in 1943, WQXR, and coincidentally, the part that I decided to stop and listen to was him performing this song with his trio, Get At Mule, da-da-da-da. And it was also cool because I'm like, wait a minute, WQXR, isn't that the station here in this area? So WQXR was the call letters, or still is a call letters, of a classical music station that we have here in the New York City area. That station was associated with the New York Times, and they used to play classical music as well. But I had no idea that those call letters were so old. They've been around since the 1940s. But for me and for other classical musicians, it's our go-to place to listen to some, Bach, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, whatever it may be. So after Daffy loses the game, it goes right into the Warner Brothers classic Blues in the Night by Harold Arlen and Johnny Mercer. Harold Arlen I spoke about in an earlier Manny's Music Time, the guy who wrote the music for The Wizard of Oz, Over the Rainbow. Blues in the Night also came from Warner Brothers movie Blues in the Night. You also hear Blues in the Night at the very end of the cartoon when the Palooka manager pretty much kidnaps Daffy and Porky and chains them to the hotel until they pay their fee. And I'm assuming he's charging for even more days since they're held captive, and probably adding interest to that. And I just love the rendition of Blues in the Night in this cartoon.
It's killing me. I'm going stir crazy.
When Daffy tries his first attempt at escaping the hotel, you hear the first of 3 songs in this particular cartoon that features the music of the legendary composer Raymond Scott. So right after Daffy says, "My card, you cad," and he hits him with the flypaper, and he does his little woot woot and runs away, and he has all the luggage on him, and poor Porky's on top of it like, oh, what's going on? You hear a little bit of the penguin during that scene right there. And I just love that camera move that it goes right to the elevator door, and then pretty much the elevator breaks and you hear like a little drum cadence when the manager forces Porky and Daffy back like a military march. And then the next cue you hear, like I said, another composition by Raymond Scott. I was going to talk more about Raymond Scott in this commentary, but it's already running long, and I'm going to save it for another one. But this particular cartoon is very significant for Raymond Scott and just cartoon history itself. So after that, have the scene where Daffy and the manager just duking it out with each other, I guess you could say. And then, "My card, please." And Daffy takes the flypaper off. And the manager, he's had it at this point. He's flipping out. He starts banging on the door, and he decides to rip off part of the, I guess, the banister or part of the railing for the hotel, and he tries to use it as a battering ram. And this is the amazing, incredible song Powerhouse from Raymond Scott, which he first recorded in 1937 with his quintet. Even though it was a 6-member band, quintet means 5 people. It should technically be called a sextet, but he wanted to call it a quintet. I was digging around the Raymond Scott website because he actually has his own website. And it's not just because he was famous for having music and animation, but he was a huge pioneer in electronic music as well. And that's something that I didn't know about until many years later, that he was just the guy who did cartoon music, or rather his music was used in animation, but like I said, he's a pioneer in a lot of electronic music. So I'm going to read a little quote from the Raymond Scott website in the FAQ section. So it says, "What is the name of the assembly line or conveyor belt, factory, or robot music I've heard in so many cartoons?" And the answer is, and this is all I'm quoting from the website, I quote, "That's Powerhouse. And it was written for Raymond Scott's six-man quintet in 1936. I said 1937 erroneously, my mistake. It was first recorded... Oh, okay, so I was sort of right. It was first recorded in February 1937 and released on record the same year. This is the Scott work which has been used the most in cartoons. Though many people don't know the title, it contains two distinct sections which are immediately recognizable to every Earthling. Part A has a frantic cat chase mouse feel, while Part B is the assembly line riff. Powerhouse was composed in ternary structure, a three-part form in which the A section is repeated after the conclusion of the B section. And ABA, that's musical form. And going back to what I was saying before, another thing from the website, it says, a quintet is a 5-member band. Why did Scott's contain 6? Did Scott have a problem with math? And again, this is all from the website. There are several reasons why Scott referred to his sextet as a quintet. For one, he said the word quintet has a crisp sound. He also thought the word sextet might prevent some people from keeping their minds on the music. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's also possible he might not have counted himself as a member. Raymond Scott hired top-notch musicians, wrote and arranged the music, and was undeniably the leader. However, he didn't consider himself a good pianist. He once said he wouldn't hire himself to play in his own bands. You and me both, brother. And he rarely took solos. Elsewhere, by the numbers, Scott's Secret Seven often had 12 members. He composed a second prelude but no first, so he was very idiosyncratic. He wrote in an 18th century drawing room in the 20th century, and in 1940 recorded a tune called Copyright 1950. So he liked to play fast and rule with words. He did not care about semantics too much. But I guess the easiest way is he liked the sound of the word, and sextet, get your minds out of the gutter. So I want to thank again the Raymond Scott website for that information. Now going back to Powerhouse itself, this cartoon only features the A theme. That's used during the whole amazing scene, probably the most famous scene in the cartoon, when the Palooka manager is trying to break the door down and Porky and Daffy pull the rug literally underneath him and he falls down the stairs, and it's just an absolute masterclass in screaming and shouting and animation from Mel Blanc. Oh, I could watch the scene over and over and over again. And actually, according to the Raymond Scott website, Porky Pig's Feet is the first Warner Brothers cartoon to use Powerhouse. It's confirmed. The short was released in July of 1943, and other cartoons in 1943 did use Raymond Scott compositions, but this was the first one to use Powerhouse, because in 1943, actually, let me quote one more thing from the website. I thought I was going to use too much, but I think this would be a better way of explaining it. So here we go, and I quote, "How did Warner Brothers manage to get so much Raymond Scott music in cartoons? Raymond Scott sold his publishing rights to Warner Brothers Music in 1943. His new publisher was Advanced Music, a division of Warner. It is unknown whether WB purchased Scott's catalog intending to use his music in cartoons, although it is possible. Carl Stalling, the WB music director, obviously liked Scott's music because he used it so much in his cartoon scores. Perhaps Stalling had played a role in WB acquiring the Scott titles, but there's no historical evidence either way. Stalling gave one interview during his life and didn't mention Raymond Scott. Scott was interviewed about his music and cartoons only late, once in his life, and he offered no revelations. Scott's U.S. publishing is no longer owned by Warner Brothers. The renewal rights have been acquired in 1964 by Music Sales Corporation." And unquote. And I was actually looking up earlier information about licensing his music, because it's not just Warner Brothers cartoons. Obviously, Ren and Stimpy use a lot of Raymond Scott music. I'm thinking of the toy trumpet in particular was used a lot in that cartoon, as well as others. Now, according to the cue sheet, it says that Twilight and Turkey by Raymond Scott is in this cartoon, and I listened to the cartoon several times, and I listened to the recording of Twilight and Turkey that Raymond Scott's quintet performed, and I couldn't really hear it. Maybe if someone in the comments can point it out, but I was having trouble hearing the melody of Twilight and Turkey. According to the sheet, it said it happened after the Powerhouse sequence and before the next song that I'm about to talk about, but I didn't really hear it. But Twilight and Turkey was used in other Warner Brothers cartoons, and actually, again, if you go to the Raymond Scott website, it has a list of how many WB cartoons use his music and what specific cues it did when Daffy and Porky are trying to escape the hotel again. And you start hearing a little bit of Perpetual Motion by Johann Strauss II, the Waltz King. I spoke about him in an earlier Manny's Music Time, the same guy who wrote the Blue Danube Waltz, Tales from the Vienna Woods. This is one of his compositions. So this happens directly when Daffy hits the manager in the head with the mallet, and him and Porky try to run around and go through the doors and this and that and up and down. So love that scene.
Sold to an American.
The next cue you hear is Oh You Beautiful Doll, which was written by Nat Eyre and Seymour Brown, and that song's pretty old, from 1911. I didn't realize it. This is when Daffy and Porky use the escape rope out of the hospital, and Porky's given the hot foot, which, you know, it shoots him up like a rocket. And of course, because Frank Tashlin is just both a master of comedy and he's a naughty little boy, and Daffy has to stop, and he looks inside one of the hotel rooms. He sees a pinup. He does a wolf whistle, and that's when you hear, Oh, you beautiful doll. Just a very, very quick blink and you'll miss it moment in the cue. And then, of course, Tashlin repeats the same gag of the wolf whistle again, and before they get back into the hotel. And during their final attempt to escape, Porky starts creating a lasso, and you hear a very quick cue of Cheyenne, so ba 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 ba, which is usually used in like cowboy settings in the Wild West and Warner Brothers cartoons. I mean, Porky's using a lasso, so of course that's like cowboy imagery.
One for the money, two for the show, three to get ready, and four to Geronimo!
And that was composed by Egbert Van Alstyne and Harry Williams. It was a song from the early 1900s. And the fact that that guy's name is Egbert, that name needs to come back. Egbert. Hey, Egbert. How you doing, Egbert? I should name my son Egbert Cruz. No, my son would hate me for the rest of his life. And after the scene when their final attempt at escaping fails, it goes back to Blues in the Night when they're contemplating their life stuck in a hotel. Now, this ending of this cartoon is one of my absolute favorites because I just appreciate it on so many different levels. So Porky is doodling with chalk on the wall. You know, I like the little reference to his love of Petunia Pig. And you see the date, September 30th, 1942. I'm assuming that's when the background was painted for this cartoon, when they were still working on it. But Porky does a little self-promotion. You know, he's giving a plug to his bosses. You know, I wish Bugs Bunny was here. And probably one of my absolute favorite musical cues ever done in a Warner Brothers cartoon, where Carl Stalling starts playing Merrily We Roll Along in the score, the Merry Melodies theme song. And you just hear it very quiet. I sound terrible today. And then he picks up the tempo.
Hello, Bugs. This is Daffy.
What's up, Doc?
That Palooka manager has got us locked up in the Broken Arms Hotel. We thought you could help us get out.
Did you try the elevator?
Yes.
Tow him down the stairs?
Yes.
Use the seat?
Yes.
Swing across on the rope?
Yes. We tried all those ways.
And I just love the whole meta. I mean, that wasn't a term back then, but like the whole meta self-referential ending of this cartoon where Porky is pretty much bringing up the star of his sister series, because many people now just call all the Looney Tune characters strictly Looney Tunes, but this was 1943 when Porky was still the star of the black and white Looney Tunes, and Bugs Bunny was the established star of the Merry Melodies series in color. But then by a few months later, Merry Melodies and Looney Tunes were both in color, and now very rarely do people refer to these characters as Merry Melody characters, because the Looney Tunes name has been around longer and it's the more obvious title. But I just love just that whole meta vibe to it. And it's also weird seeing how Daffy is just so excited to have Bugs Bunny around, you know, fast forward a few years later when Chuck Jones changes his dynamic and the whole Hundreds trilogy and whatnot. And I just love the way that Carl Stalling arranged this use of the Merry Melodies theme. And this is the only time in the entire Warner Brothers canon from the original shorts from the 30s to the 60s that Bugs, Daffy, and Porky appear at the same time. And I know in the comics, Bugs was paired with Porky and so on and so forth. But for me, I always think of them as the original trio of Warner Brothers characters. I mean, with Disney, you have the trio of Mickey, Donald, and Goofy. But for me, almost always in my mind, that's the trio that pops in my head. It's Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and Porky Pig. but they were never together. I mean, Bugs and Daffy didn't start until the 50s, and Porky and Daffy have literally been connected since the very beginning, because Porky's Duck Hunt was Daffy's first cartoon. But it's cool to see all three of them interacting at the same time, and it's a shame that it only happened this one time, and this is one of the rare appearances that Bugs Bunny made in black and white. He was in a Private Snafu short, as well as this, and if you want to argue the very early version of Bugs Bunny, when he was still in the whole vibe of his earlier days, of the proto-Bugs, not Happy Rabbit, that's not a real term. We don't use that here. Okay. This is also the final black and white Porky Pig cartoon. Daffy would be in a few more, but after this, Porky and Daffy had a few more, but Porky's next role in 1944 would be a color cartoon, and obviously Bugs was already in the color Merry Melodies. There's just one other musical thing that it's not a cue, but just like a nice little touch. I like the scene where Daffy takes the Palooka manager's card and he starts using a hole puncher and he makes it look like, not origami, like those little puppets that kids play with paper. And you hear like a little bit of a celeste playing in the background. I thought it was a nice little touch. Oh my God, I've recorded for 30 minutes. He's going to murder me.
You darn dude!
And plus, I got to go to sleep. I mean, it's my birthday, but it's on a Sunday night, you know. Maybe I should stay up and keep recording more, or just watch this cartoon on a loop, because I love it. I could constantly watch it. Thanks to Anthony for letting me come on and record. Yeah, this is a masterpiece. It is on the list of the 100 greatest Looney Tunes cartoons. Deservedly so. It's hilarious. The animation is great. Just the way that Tashlin plays around with the camera and the setting and just the poses that he had his animators do. It's a masterpiece. Like I said, it's in my top 10. I love this cartoon. I did remember seeing it years ago on Cartoon Network in the computer colorized version. I don't remember seeing this one on Nickelodeon. Or actually, no, now that I think about it, I did remember watching on Nickelodeon. Especially for one of the Looney Tunes on Nickelodeon intros, you see the clip of Daffy swinging with Porky on the rope where he goes, Geronimo! It is part of the Looney Tunes on Nickelodeon opening. So I did see this cartoon back then, but just every time I watch it, I can't stop laughing at how funny it is. And it deserves all the praise it gets. I mean, I usually don't rate shorts, but this is a 10 out of 10. You know, this is one of the best they ever made. And just, once again, a shame Tash didn't stay longer, but thank goodness he had such an amazing output in his time at Warner Brothers. And a great send-off to Porky Pig's black and white career. So yeah, these are my thoughts, Manny's music time, and ramblings on my 36th birthday about a cartoon I love so very much. So thank you all for listening. Thanks for all the support. Please follow me on social media at the Toony Tenor, TheToonyTenor. Just keep up with my life as a musician and a geek of all things Looney and Turtley and Avatar-y and Ghosty and whatever. All that fun stuff. Oh, and Simpson-y, because, of course, can't go anywhere without a Simpsons reference. Donut. Or maybe Anthony should put a, since it's my birthday. You know what? Do this, please. Put the photo of Homer eating the cake where he's like smushing the cake with his face. Please do it. I beg of you. All right, folks. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening. And that's all, folks, from your Palooka Toony Tenor. Bye.
Thank you, Manny. And my editor asked me if he wanted to record a bit for this, and I said, sure. Why not? Why not? Take it away, Blue.
Hey guys, it's Blugenesi, or Jardy if you prefer. I live in the special zone where Anthony banished me because I made him watch Shrek, and now I make videos about anything I feel like, while I also deal with a bunch of wacky characters while I try to make said content. It's totally not a ripoff of MST3K, but also if I get 1,000 subs, we get to force Anthony to watch Shrek too. Just putting that out there. I generally edit these redos for Anthony, and I mostly stay silent unless I really want to add something, or I see a chance to riff on Anthony. So really, I never shut up. Anyways, I'm not going to be the 15th nerd and a half regurgitating the same facts at you in this video. Like, wow, a Frank Tashlin short is something you should see? What a freaking concept. What I will add to this video is that I love the fact that at the end, they have a working phone, and I guess they just never called the police. This is where I get to play 1200 IQ Redditor and go, is Daft the Duck stupid, and post it as trivia on the IMDb page. Don't be that person. The other thing, as joked about in the beginning of this video, is the fact that we have Daffy gushing about Bugs Bunny and how great he is. Maybe Leon forced him to do it, but actually I want to propose a half-ass theory to you all. Is ass okay to stay on the channel, Anthony? If not, here, censor this. Ass, 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 ass. This short is the first Tashlin directed short after his return to Warner, right? And we all know what these directors thought of good old Leon Schlesinger, real Scrooge McDuck. He stayed out of their way mostly, but it's generally just what they all said about him. Just a real money grubber. So isn't it a little bit funny that the first short Tashlin directs is a short with Porky Pig, a character he hates, but Leon loved, dealing with a big fat money grubbing, well, you kind of see where I'm going with this, right? Replace the hotel with work at Termite Terrace, and maybe it's echoing how Tashlin felt returning to Warner Brothers? And maybe Daffy and Porky represent two sides of Tashlin's psyche, Porky being how he is, and Daffy being how he wanted to act. I mean, after all, I have no idea what it's like to be trapped at all. And yeah, it's kind of a half-baked English teacher theory, but they get paid for it, so why not me? And you know what? If you hate the idea, tell it to us in the comments. There you go, you Shrek-hating dork. I'm engaging your audience by pissing them off. Anyway, I edited most of this video. I have no idea where Anthony's gonna slot this in. Hopefully before Manny, so people are actually awake to see me. Just kidding. We love you too, old man. Alright guys, I'm out. Have fun with the rest of the video. Boo! Whoop!
Am I really going to rate this less than 10? No. Not at all. This is definitely a 10 out of 10. It's one of the greatest Looney Tunes cartoons of all time. Tashlin's return is just so incredible. He hits out of the park straight away. And while not everything he directed in the 40s is perhaps perfect like this, just about every cartoon he's done in the 40s is just of such high quality, and I can't wait to cover them all yet again. So that'll do it for this review. Thank you so much for watching, and now you can watch the short for yourself and let me know what you think in the comments. So until next time, take care.
Broken arms, bill, room, $65, big bath, around $10.50, total $152.50.
You will, of course, pay the bill now before you leave, no?
No, I mean, yes, my partner Daffy Duck will be right back. He's out cashing a check. Come on, 7. Be good to Daffy. Don't fail me now.
Uh-oh. Snake eyes. Too bad. You is a dead duck. Duck.
Don't worry, Daffy will be here in a minute with money.
Well, I hope so.
Insulting my integrity! Hey, fatso! Insinuating I'd flee this flea-bitten dump! Hey, fatso! Intimating I'd abscond with your financial remunerations! Hey, fatso! Hey, look! A Dick Tracy character! Prune face!
You have insulted me. We meet on the field of honor. My card.
You've had your coffee racing for this week, Robespierre. You have insulted me. We meet on the field of onion. card, you cad!
And you don't get out until you pay up!
My card, please. I guess I showed that overstuffed turnip. What? Yipe. Me too. Yipe.
Oh, ouch! Ouch! Ow! Ow! Ooh! Ow! Oh! Ah! Oh! Ah! Oh! Ah! Oh! Ah! Oh! Ow! Oh! Ow! Oh! Ow! Ow! Oh! Ow! Ooh! Ouch! 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 Ooh! Ow! Ouch! Ooh! Oh! Oh! Ooh! Ow!
Okay, we'll pay. We'll pay. Let me see now. How much was it? How much? Sold to an American. Hurry up, Daffy. Don't dilly, don't dilly, time's a wasting. One for the money, two for the show, three to get ready, and four to Geronimo! I can't stand it. I can't stand it. It's getting me. I'm going stir crazy. Bastille Betty. Cooler cuckoo. Look at my prison pallor. I'm as black as a sheet. Gosh, if Bugs Bunny was only here. Yeah, Bugs Bunny, my hero. He can get out of any spot. I saw him in a Leon Schlesinger cartoon once. The hunter had him covered, and he grabbed the gun, and bang! The hunter fell. What a guy! Nothing can hold him. He'll get us out of here. Hello, Central. Give me Bugs Bunny. Hello, Bugs. This is Daffy.
What's up, Duck?
That Palooka manager has got us locked up in the Broken Arms Hotel. We thought you could help us get out.
Did you try the elevator?
Yes.
Throw him down the stairs?
Yes.
Use the sheet?
Yes.
Swing across on the rope?
Yes. We tried all those ways.
Ah! Don't work, do they?
That's all, folks.